Okay, this is the Teachers Association. Reports from school-related organizations.
I think I could drag this out for about 30 or 40 minutes to keep you guys here even longer. Sure. No.
Good evening, board, everybody up here tonight. First of all, tonight, there's been a lot of heartache heard tonight, and I just want to acknowledge it and all of it that is out there. I want to say congratulations to Sarah Benner for her acknowledgement, and I'm sure I'm missing something else in that. I'm going to start tonight by mentioning Ron Fier, and I want to acknowledge Ron Fier as my bargaining chair, who has done so much for the district over the years, and I want to acknowledge Ron for verifying the numbers in our budget and helping us reach our agreement that we came to and the correct identification of the formula. I want to mention the governor's budget, and while we heard a lot of stuff tonight, we have heard some good news from the governor, and that's a good sign. I'm sure we're going to hear more about that, so I won't go into details. There's a lot of hard decisions coming, and you guys have your work cut out for you, and I want to commend you for doing that part. You have an impossibly hard job, and I want to thank you for taking it on. I want to acknowledge that in order to do something, we have to admit that there's a problem out there. Tonight, you heard a lot of it. So I'm hoping we take that to heart and go forward and make some efforts to fix some of these problems. I know we can find the solutions to the problems that are out there, and I know that you guys can do that. So thank you, and I appreciate the efforts you're going to put into this.
CSEA.
I'm sure I'll do fine too. It's a tough act to follow sometimes.
Board members, staff, administration, good evening. My name is Bill Faust, and I'm the newly elected president of the California School Employees Association, and it's just Chapter 389. My e-board is not here. I'm not going to take time to introduce them and tell you who they are, but I do have a whole new e-board, so we'll be taking some training and getting some stuff going for the classified staff. To echo a little bit of what Todd said, sure, there's heartache and there's a lot of tough decisions, but as far as classified goes, I represent over 1,200 people, but I ask you this: transparency, honesty, trust, and collaboration. Those are your four. If we can continue to do those things, we're going to make this thing work and we're going to turn this thing around. So I ask you to honor that, support us as we support everybody else and teachers as well, and thank you for having me up here. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Bill. DLAC. Is DLAC here tonight, Yolanda? Okay, we are on to 8, and I have a poll card for 8A, but I can't find it.
Thank you.
Steve Sanchez.
You guys gonna present that PowerPoint? After. I thought I would speak after. My name is Steve Sanchez. I've been a teacher at Rancho Buena Vista for about 20 years, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the presentation you're about to see. I won't step on their toes with what they're going to talk to you about, but I want to come from a teacher's perspective and say, in my 20 years, I see something, and you can even hear the echoes of it throughout tonight. I see a voice and I see a thirst for choice that I've never seen before. Students today are more aware of their options than I've ever seen, and they want to be served. And we are not serving them at Rancho Buena Vista. We are not offering the opportunities for them to take a diverse range of classes. We are forcing them into, they get to do one thing. They get one thing. You do band, that's it. You do drama, that's it. You play a sport, that's pretty much it. I look at Mission Vista. I ran as a club, I ran a speech and debate program. In Mission Vista, this program is unbelievable. because they can teach it within the school day. We had one of the best speech and debate teams in the state 15 years ago. But students had to make choices. There's no room in their schedule to take speech and debate. How many kids have lost chances to go to Ivy League schools and the top schools in the country because they don't have an opportunity like that? And this serves all our students. I taught ELD for the first 10 years at Rancho. Those kids wanted to take robotics and all that, but they have to take remedial courses to catch up and language courses. So this serves all our students. And we teach, I'm part of our IB program. La Costa Canyon, one of the top high schools in the county, came to visit RBV and check out our IB program. They observed several classes. They saw what we do at our school, they adopted it, and now they're an IB school, and the first thing they did is change their schedule to accommodate their students so they can offer the program as it's intended to be offered. We find a way to make it work, but it could work so much better. We would easily double the number of students who would go through the IB diploma. But because of the odd circumstances in the scheduling, I mean, you have to have kids, they have to take classes at junior college, they have to take classes online, they have to come at 6:30 in the morning to take classes, they have to take 7th period classes, they have to make a decision about playing sports or being in the school play. It's just absurd what we're forcing them to do. And here's the problem is, they know it. And students are making choices, and there's never been more choice for them. And if we don't invest and compete, we are going to continue to lose students, and it's a shame because our staff, without even incentives, we've created electives like astronomy and computer science. We've done that just on our own. And if we had this framework, our staff would put together some amazing classes for our students.
Yours.
Coolio. Is that on remote? Can I have a remote?
It just magically happens.
Wow. Like a Jedi mind trick. Okay. Okay, great. Okay, so pass up the Lord of the Rings. I think. Okay, here we go. My name is Scott Bailey. I'm a teacher at Rancho Buena Vista High School. I'm one of the leads on the 8-period team at Rancho. I want to do a quick introduction of the people who are involved, not just at Rancho, but also at Vista. So, first of all, of course, Chuck Schindler is our principal, and then the other lead at Rancho is Carrie Anderson. Over at Vista, of course, you have Cheryl, the interim principal, Lance Perro, we've got Pete Brooks, Melissa Cotter, and Sandy Bailey. They're the 8-period team over at Rancho. What's been really fascinating about this process is that both of these schools were working through this over the last several years concurrently, with almost no conversation, but landing on the same place. So our purpose here today, I know that we've met with most of the board members, but we do want to kind of reinforce some of the conversation that we had, and maybe answer some of the questions that you might have about the advantages to not just the school sites, but to the district. Okay? So
Look at that.
this is the rationale that we developed here. So let me just go ahead and read it to you. I know that, are you looking at it on your screens while I'm speaking as well? Okay, so let's break the rule of public speaking. I'm going to read to you what you're looking at. So I'll add to it as we go along. So the basic rationale for RBV and VHS students is that they should be provided the same course opportunities as Mission Vista High School as well as neighboring high schools. This is the crux of what we're talking about, and you cannot talk about equity in this district without acknowledging that we are developing a budget that values students at one side of this district more than the other two. You cannot get around that. You can talk about that they have different funding directions, but in the end, if you're a parent or a kid, you are looking at how come they get 8 in a school year and I get 6? Steve did a great job outlining some of the problems that different demographics have at our school. You cannot get around this fundamental problem in our district. It's got to happen now. We can't wait another year. We can't wait another year. There's not going to be rainbows and unicorns ever with a budget. It's just not going to happen. So either we have the political will to move forward and a thing that we fundamentally all agree with. I've talked with all of you. You all agree with this idea. It's just about political will. It is putting one step in front of the other, and I promise you, this is going to work out. This will make money for our district. We're not naive in thinking that budgets don't matter. We are not naive. We need to be careful, we need to be thoughtful. But there's no business in the world that is gonna say, let's make our product worse and get smaller so we can do better. There's no business in the world that's gonna do that. That is what we are doing. We are losing students to surrounding schools because we are not investing in our business. And our business is about kids, okay? I know a lot of you have kids who go through the district. Some of you went to Rancho schools. Some of you were principals at schools in our district, right? You know what it's like. We are here for kids. And you can't look a parent in the eye or a kid in the eye and say, I value you. Well, not much as those kids. But we value a little bit. You can't do that. It's impossible. You can't do that. So we didn't have the political will to move forward. This is an investment. It's a financial investment. It's going to help us with our budget. So that is the fundamental rationale that we have there. So, you know, RBB has a structural problem. We already went through it. RBB specifically is an outpost school because we're positioned where we are. We are losing some students more than any of us want. We're losing students to surrounding schools, to San Marcos, to Sage Creek, to Mission Hills, to those schools that are moving ahead. We look antiquated and sad. Look to the person next to you. If we are not moving ahead, we look sad. And no parent in the world is going to say, you know what? That's the district I want to go to. My kid will have less opportunity there. Perfect. Nailed it. That's not going to happen. So Rancho specifically, our problem is we're losing people because it's real easy for a parent just to go ahead and go to one of those other schools. Real simple for us, right? Vista's got the same structural issues, but it is also complicated by this great opportunity with the XQ grant. I mean, what a fantastic opportunity, and we are falling short. Any Vista teacher, when they come and talk to you about it, they are falling short of these remarkable goals they had at the beginning of this. They're falling short. They're not happy with it. They're feeling that you are underutilizing us, right? We need some structural help to help us make this grant do more for our kids. The last thing is that investing in any period day is going to allow RBB and Vista students to be competitive with neighboring districts. I already addressed that. Okay, so I won't read that to you. Did you want any questions about this first slide? Fantastic. Man, we're in sync. Must be the point. I don't know. Okay, so you know, we try to break down a couple of four basic points that we want to just kind of reinforce here. Number one, 6-period scheduling limits students. We've already established that. Okay, you don't have to be a master at the complications of a high school master schedule to recognize a 6-period day restricts students. A 7-period scheduling, it's logistically complicated. There are way more contract complications with that. Chuck maybe can speak to the complications of a master schedule, the 7-period day. There's some percentage things that are very difficult to pull off there. The 8-period day really kind of seamlessly can be folded into what we already have in our district. It is as smooth as it can go. There are other models out there. We looked at them. We looked at them back in 2002 when Rich was with us. We looked at them then, right? We looked at them in the mid-2000s. We looked at them before we started the 8-period stuff. We've looked at it. This is the most seamless way we can pull this into our district, okay? Number 2 says that, you know, the idea of the year-long, we just need to make sure we're crystal clear on this. There's a fundamental difference between an 8-period day and a 4x4, which is what they're running at Mission Vista. A 4x4 schedule is fast. It's fast-paced because you're taking 4 classes in 1 semester, and that's a whole year instead of a regular 2-semester setup. That may be appropriate for Mission Vista, good for them. We would never want to take anything from that school. They're doing great things for those students, right? But we just know at Vista and RBD, we have fundamentally different demographics. I know that you've explored that, right? So we just know that we've got different populations and they benefit better from a year-long 8-period model than this truncated, fast-paced 4x4, okay? Step 3, students' needs. This model provides students the additional classes within the scope of the instructional day. Again, Steve, my God, Steve, it's like you set me up perfectly. This idea of within the scope of the instructional day is really important to this. Because asking people to show up before school, after school, doing things over the summer, there are all kinds of economic implications in there. And honestly, if they're going to set up a system where kids have to do that, there's some financial bias in there. You are hurting kids that don't have as much money. No way around that. Getting to school at a certain time, going home at a certain time, there's other pressures, right? So the idea here is that this really helps students best, and you know, they can better personalize their day. Okay. The last one, number 4, is the LCAP. We got to keep going back to the LCAP. There's a reason that it's there. right? So according to district goals, students should be enrolled in CTE, Science A through G, and BAPA courses. And under the current models at our two schools, it's not just a struggle, I hate that word, it is virtually impossible. I mean, so many things have to go right for a kid to be able to pull off all those things that you have set up, these noble goals in the LCAP. It just can't happen, okay? So those are the basic overview. Does anybody have any quick questions about that?
You did a good job getting
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm curious as to what you mean by the different population at the two high schools.
The Mission Vista? Well, let's start with alone just the EL population. Like, in terms of EL classes at Mission Vista, how many do they have?
Well, not many, but
No, not many, zero.
compared to your population,
They have 0 EL classes.
I understand.
Okay, so that's one demographic change that's different. So under a 4x4
How
model,
big is your
a kid who's
How
a,
big is your ELD program?
what do you got, Chuck?
Our EL students, probably about 300.
About 300.
Okay, 300 out of 2,500,
No. I wish we were that high.
300 out of 2,100.
2,100.
Okay, so that's a chunk. So that's
I
something.
guess, Scott, my concern is that when we decide that a demographic, that a particular thing is not good for a demographic, we kind of make a decision that the delivery and what's going to happen won't work for those kids. And I struggle with that, because then we have eliminated an idea that we can teach kids regardless of where they come from, what background they come from, and do that now. And I would tell you that when you look at any of these changes, we separate the special needs children because the change is not designed for them, quite honestly, most of the time. It's designed for our general education kids to get through and give them the more opportunities, because our ELD kids often and our special ed kids are taking coursework designed to meet their particular needs, even in a 6-period day at this point.
All good points, and I'm glad you brought that up, because we'll directly take a look at that with the schedules of those two specific demographics a little bit later here. And we can show you how it's going to help them.
Real quick.
So I would push
Scott.
back against the idea that it's just about general ed kids. It's actually literally the opposite of what we're talking about. So I'll show that to you when we get to that.
I have a question. So we asked about Rancho's EL population. What's Vista High's EL population?
About 500? Yeah.
Out of how many?
24.
We're at, I think it's 2290 officially enrolled right now. We have 1,400 ever ELs of that 2,200. So that means that at any one point in their educational career, they were designated EL. We currently have 300 ELs enrolled in an ELD or a SEI class. And we also have 374 SPED students. So that's out of 2290, it's a good portion of our population that we're actually going to be addressing specifically. So this particular proposal actually is doing quite the opposite of which Rich is suggesting. It's actually focusing on those children and helping to bring equity to them.
So you will address how it is beneficial to our students who struggle.
Absolutely. All right, so the next part here is fundamental to, high school's the end game, right? I mean, it doesn't mean it's necessarily more important than other levels, but it's the end. They're on their way out, and a big part of that exit is about A through G. To make sure that we're clear on this, and I don't want to sound condescending, when we talk A through G, we're talking about kids that they can get into college. They've taken the classes they're supposed to take. So I think at this point, I just want to have Carrie come up and walk through this portion of the presentation, because she's sort of an expert in the way that the 8-period day affects A through G.
I got this. Are you okay if I actually go over there? I gotta kind of go in teacher mode and point. Yes, I will use my teacher voice. So, this is actually taken from our course catalog, but this is based on what's in the district paperwork and what is provided to all students. And ooh, fancy. Thank you. So over here you see the VUSD graduation requirement. So of our graduation requirement, you can see the different subjects. You can see English is 40 credits. Each semester is 5 credits. So to get 40 credits, you need 4 years of English. Okay? Are you following me? Are you good with that? Okay, so you can see that they're gonna have 4 years of English, they're gonna have 3 years of math, they're gonna have 2 years of science, 2 years of PE, 1 year of world history, 1 year of US, 1 year of government econ, so those all 3 go under social science. And then you're gonna see foreign language or fine art, and then electives. But foreign language and fine arts also fall under electives, and so do additional CTE and courses outside of here, or if they take additional courses within those subject matters. Okay, so if instead of math, instead of taking 3 years, they take 4 years, that 4th year can go into elective. But here is where we start getting into some of the more specific points of it. So these graduation requirements, if you notice at the top, it says they don't start until the class of 2021. So our graduation requirements were changed, I think 2 years ago. Our juniors and seniors actually have more graduation requirements, which put them at even more of a loss in terms of electives and additional courses for enrichment or support or whatever they need. So our current juniors have 4 years of history required, and they have 3 years of PE required. So there's 2 additional classes they have to take in order to graduate from VUSD. And then VUSD agreed to change that in order to give them a little bit more opportunity with those classes if they wanted to take something else. But here's where it kind of crosses over. So that is our graduation requirement. Graduation requirement is different than A through G. So our A through G registration is basically for college application. You can see the side-by-side requirements. So US history, social science, you can see required 2 years. And recommended is 3 years, but we did have 4, so our juniors and seniors are in their 4 years. So that's good, right? But that would fill a class that they have to take, and it could be elective credit, but then if they don't pass that class, they have to do credit recovery or they fall behind, and that would fill a different period, and it sets them back even further. And then you can see as you go through here that to go to UCs or CSUs, those numbers go up. They recommend 4 years of English, 4 years of math, 3 years of history, 3 years of lab science, 3 years of a foreign language, and at least 1 year of visual or performing art. If you notice, that's a lot of classes when you only have 6 periods in a day. It makes it really hard to take electives. And so this is kind of, and then with that, you can see the ACT, SAT, the external requirements. But basically, we are limiting our students. So in the 6-period model, right away, just from basic math, if they have 6 courses a year, they already have 2 less than students that are taking 8 courses a year. So basic math, they have 8 less courses, right, over the course of their high school career, which means these other students don't have to go to a community college to take their language so they can be in drama. I had a student that went to Palomar over the summer, each summer, to take her language because she wanted to be in drama, and she couldn't do both. She couldn't choose both of them because she had to do her core classes and her PE. And that, to me, is a disservice to our students. They cannot pursue their interests because it doesn't fit in their schedule. It tells me that we are not serving our population's needs because they're looking elsewhere. And that's where probably some of our loss to charter schools comes in, because charter schools give students different opportunities. So, okay. All right, any questions on this one? No? All right, can we go to the next one? Okay, so as part of a high school endgame, high school really is the endgame for districts. When people look at districts, they look at high schools. I'm not trying to take away from middle schools and elementaries. They are instrumental in getting kids to us, right? They lay the foundation for what we do. But in the end, They look at graduation rates. They look at dashboards. They look at what is your high school doing for your district. And so what you can see here is the new dashboard model that's being used by the state, and they use a color coding system. And the EL one was not put up, so that is why it is gray, but you can see kind of the color variation between the schools. And our focus here is really on this college and career. And like Scott said, we don't want to take away from Mission Vista. They are doing fantastic things. Their kids have those opportunities to really step above. And because of that, you can see they're blue for college and career. They are in the top. Because what college and career does is it looks at a whole bunch of different formulas and ways to get your color over. So does your student take at least 3 AP classes? Have they taken a pathway in a CTE course? Have they enrolled in diverse art and language courses? Basically, they're looking at all of the different courses that can lead to college and career. Our students, our juniors and our seniors, didn't even have the option for pathways, the ones that are currently there, because they didn't have room in their schedule to take a CTE course 2 years in a row if they're going to meet their graduation requirements. So if you notice, Mission Vista, awesome, good job. Okay, Vista High, doing well. They're in yellow, okay, so they're right in the middle, and they have a more robust CTE program. They do the culinary arts, the auto, the FFA. I mean, those are fantastic things, and the kids get drawn in, and they make room in their schedule. They have to give up something else in order to stay in that, but once they're in that program, they usually stay for the next year. And so that college and career, they can get the 2 years in the CTE pathway. And then for RVV, if you notice, we're over in the orange. Our students don't have those same opportunities. They're not able to really fill the categories needed because of the limited schedule and our limitations in really developing our CTE until recently, because there just wasn't room. We do have IB, we do have AP, and those are fantastic opportunities, but what about enrichment, right? What about college and career? Our students, sometimes it just takes one class to connect them to a school. Maybe that one student really, really needs photography. They want that class where they can go outside, they can take pictures, they can interact on a different level with the staff or the students, but they can't fit it in their schedule because they have to take their support classes or their EL classes or their AP and IB classes. Really, depending on the pathway you're in, it depends on what's available to you. And because of that, we limit all of our students, not just one group of students, but all of our students. Okay. Any questions on this one? No? All right, next one. Okay, so this one is back to you.
So this will start to kind of address some of the, literally what it looks like. So what we tried to do was, just realized, Gary, you're going to do this slide. I'll just roll it.
I still have a microphone.
Do you?
I do.
Hey, you got the mic. Roll. Go for it.
Okay, here we go. I'm ready. So the problem, that is what I was just mentioning. So we used a sample schedule. This is actually a sample schedule from an unnamed student, but as you can see, we picked a diploma-bound special ed student. Schools have special ed students. They have very specific needs within their schedule. So looking at the overview of the problem, big picture, the 6th period limits course options, which challenges students' ability to be competitive. If you limit their options, right, there is really that lack of encouragement to step outside of their comfort zone and continue on into new courses or to higher level courses because they just keep following the same path. And with this, it limits your enrichment opportunities, right? If I have to take a study skills class or I need a support class for reading, that takes the place of one of my other classes. And it could even be a core class that I would have to take later, like science, because there's less years required, that I push off my science, and then when I take science, if I don't do well in science, I'm now credit deficient for graduation. So it's this whole domino effect. And then it limits intervention, support, remediation, credit recovery, because honestly, if I'm a student, I don't want to be in a study skills and a reading class and then go to English and history and freshman seminar and PE. Not to say that the courses aren't interesting, but where is really my true engagement in a subject I may be passionate about?
So
right? These are all support.
So those are some of the problems of the 6-period day. I think maybe now's a good time. Pete Brooks has studied this really closely here. So Pete, could you say a couple words about this?
Sure.
The one thing I want to point out is we're looking at the schedule on the left, and some of you might say, well, at least, I mean, the kid's getting drama. They're getting, and they have their study skills class. But if we do the math, they won't their senior year, because they only get 7 electives. Okay, we have, there's 17 required classes you have to do, okay, in order to graduate. 24 possible, there's 7 electives. Your drama and study skills add up to 8. This kid becomes a senior, they have to decide drama, or do I get the help I need as a special ed student? That's how unfair this is for these kids.
You know, we've also folded in, if you look at where it says first period there, it says freshman seminar and the challenge classes. Those are classes that we've sort of designed to try to help bring freshmen into this new experience that's very different than a middle school, right? So we've actually developed these kinds of courses, both the freshman seminar and challenge course at VUSD, are designed to help freshmen with that transition. You know, we've had a problem with freshman failure rate, right? And you start failing early on, and it's really easy to give up. So we built that class around that idea. So, you know, to at least address, Rich, I am sympathetic to the argument of being really careful about building a schedule around one specific demographic. I think we should all be mindful of that, right? But I think you can kind of see from this model, this is actually built, you know, the schedule we have now is built around a single demographic. It's the kid in the middle that can pull it off, right? What we need to do, what a 6-period and 8-period day is it provides a whole host of options for more demographics, right? More groups on campus, which is what we want to do, okay? All right, let's move on to the next one. So, you know, here's the solution. The 8-period day allows more courses, allows for intervention, support, remediation, for credit recovery. I mean, this is hitting every kind of kid you got on a campus, right? And it allows students to become more academically competitive with their peers at other schools. It's really embarrassing. Don't kid yourselves. It's embarrassing. What are you looking at? Cat memes or something? What are you doing?
Any more slides you have to go through.
That's for the record, I was here.
Scott, you got to remember, 4 elementary people, 1 high school guy.
Right. For the record, I was here at 6. Okay. Nevertheless, this is what it would look like for an ELD student here, an ELD 3 student. Look at this. This is a growing population, right? Not just in our district, but certainly at Rancho and Vista, and we care about those kids. And an 8-period schedule gives them, look at, they can take Spanish for Spanish speakers too. They can fit that in. That's college. That's prepping. That's literally A through G. They're getting that. They can't fit that in now, no matter how hard they try. So this is helping students like that. Okay. Quick questions? Great. Let's roll. There are some implications here to remember. I just want to make sure that this is crystal clear. It doesn't change the daily student contacts. It's 165, 165. Let's make sure we're clear on Mission Vista, right? They're not running at 180, 190. That's not what's going on. Right? They got 90 one semester, and then they go. They don't see those kids again unless it's a passing period. They get a whole new 90. So they are not teaching 100, and I keep hearing this again and again in our district, so let's make this crystal clear, okay? I assign one essay to all my 165 on one day, I get 165 back, right? They do it on any given day, they never get more than 90. We're all clear on that now, right? Okay, so we can get rid of that part. All right, the next part, course is taught 5 out of 6 if you're a teacher right now, right? That's 5 out of 6 because you get a conference period, right, by contract. under an 8-period day, right? One of the advantages of a teacher is you get a little bit more prep time. Well, you certainly have enough things to do. So, right, the idea here is that now we can get this every day, this prep period, rather than it being inconsistent, plus you get a little more time. So there's a side letter required, of course, right? Because there's a little bit of adjustment here. We actually, 3 years ago, we drafted this up in the early exploration. So we actually have a draft of this side letter that we've done through the BTA a little bit. It'll need some tweaking, given the recent changes, but it's functional right now. And of course, hey, no surprise, we're going to need some new teachers, right? That's part of the deal. That's the crux of our conversation. Let's do the next slide.
Why do you need a side letter?
I'm sorry?
What's the side letter for?
Because now we're teaching 6 out of 8 for one.
It just changes the.
Right. So it's just acknowledging that shift and what it currently says, that's all. And then there's a prep period thing going on there too, right? There's a conference period thing that needs to be kind of outlined as well. So I'd be welcome to show you that draft. Okay, here we go, staffing formula. This is, I cannot tell you how outside my expertise this is, so that's why I brought the big brain of Chuck Schindler. So he's going to go ahead and briefly run through these numbers because he's a master at this. So Chuck's been at 25 hours of meetings in a 24-hour day, so hang tough, Chuck.
Good evening. Good evening. All right, I don't think I'm quite a master at it, but I'll try to explain what I've got it here as quickly and simply as I can. The VUSD staffing formula is the one that HR uses to calculate our general fund teacher allotment every year. So take out CTE, take out special education teachers, take out counselors, it has nothing to do with them. It's the general education, general fund allotment of teachers that we get applied to the formula, which calculates in, as Scott just shared, the 165-day total, 6 classes taught, 8 periods in a day. We do the calculation to figure out how many FTEs would it take to accommodate my 2,000, and I use my projection for next year, which is approximately 2,068. That's our projection for next year. So that's what I use for student population. We do the calculation to figure out what I would need for an 8-period day. So below that, you're going to see for RBV, currently right now, my allotment for this year was 73 general fund teachers. Now, we were given an additional 8.5 approximately, and Donna can correct me, but approximately 8.5 LCAP extra FTEs, plus some categorical, couple extra FTEs for categorical, which gives me 84 FTEs this year. And currently I have 84 bodies on my campus that fit this. So that's 84 teachers right now. In order to do the 8-period days, as has been explained to you, and to meet these numbers requirement, I would need 92 FTEs for an 8-period day to accommodate the kids that will be taking 8 periods. I did some other calculations when I came to the 92. For example, in this one, and we also use it with Vista High School below that, seniors not taking 8 periods. And that was to try to make this work, otherwise my 92 would be 100. If you had all 4 grade levels taking 8 periods a day, every day. Now, right now, we have a lot of seniors that take 5 periods a day, currently. So, if they are limited to 6 out of 8, we can get in, squeeze in 92, which would be 8 additional FTEs above what I have right now. Vista High currently has 98, same model, general fund, plus their LCAP, plus their categorical has 98. 8 periods using the same model that I use would be approximately 110 to do an 8-period day for them, which would be 12 additional FTEs in order to pull off the 8-period day for all of our kids. So that's my quick run through of doing my math using.
Chuck, would theirs increase the same ratio as yours if they did seniors?
Increase.
Like you mentioned, if you didn't do seniors, you wouldn't need as many.
Right, and theirs is based on what I did for mine. So in
but
fact,
that's what I mean in others. If they were going to do seniors,
yes,
it would be another about 8 at the same.
Yep, exactly. That's what it would be to go with. So and these are the numbers we work with in terms of trying to make an 8-period day at least within reason, feasible to go for all of our kids with the mathematics. Okay?
Oh.
Make sense? or not.
I'm just wondering how phase-inable it would be. Like, let's say you didn't have a ton of money and you wanted to do it, and you said, we're gonna just start with freshmen and roll it up. Is that doable? Is that possible?
You want it from my master schedule line?
Yeah.
My retirement would be earlier. If you've done a high school master schedule
I'm just asking.
before, which is complicated as it is, and I know Rich is familiar with doing a high school master schedule for kids, the minute you try to say, let's do one grade level and not the others, you have to remember, and you'll see this later, in an 8-period day, we're talking 4 periods a day, rotating. So every period, there's going to be a certain number of kids on campus. For 2,068 kids, if every kid's taking a class that period, I need approximately 70 teachers teaching that period. I need 2,068 seats. Now, when you start trying to figure out, ooh, okay, well, let's pretend this period, all 9, 10, 11, 12 particular class, you're going to have 70 teachers. But next period, because we're only going to do 9th grade, 8th period day, then I have less. It's a nightmare for a master schedule. They wouldn't be.
You
they
could not
wouldn't be
blend
even.
the bell schedule.
Nope, and that's the other problem.
You can't blend the bell
I
schedule.
couldn't have 2 bell schedules, otherwise everybody would be going nuts, including my neighbors.
You could say.
The bell's ringing constantly.
You could say that seniors aren't gonna take 8 classes.
So in this model,
It would
it's
still be an
saying.
8-period schedule.
Correct. So they would do 6 periods in an 8-period day, which is much easier to figure out in a master schedule. To make that work, because I'm only talking about 1 grade level, which is seniors. I can calculate that, and that's the math I worked on last summer, is taking my seniors out of the mix and then did the math, figured out how many teachers I would need each period to make this work, and it's feasible to do it that way. And it's feasible for me to get a master's schedule done in a timely manner. Otherwise, the minute you start playing, let's have 2 grades, let's do this, I will leave my person who follows me a nightmare trying to figure out the master schedule, the next step. It's easier, if you're going to do this, just do it. Get a master schedule done. Roll on, as these guys have already said. You got to dive in and do it, and then we start going from there. Otherwise, it'll die of its own weight because you're fighting with the master schedule, trying to figure out what to do it right. Okay?
Move to the next slide. Thank you. Thank you.
You want to do it or me?
You can go do it.
Oh, you want it? Hey, Chuck? Hey, Chuck?
Yeah.
Can actually Carrie address the little pie chart there? I don't think we need to worry about that.
No.
The total.
Okay.
Go ahead, talk about it a little bit, then Carrie wants to make a couple comments.
You want to go first?
Go to me.
Did you have the other calculation?
I have it with me, yes.
It was not in here though.
No, it is not
Okay,
in there.
I'll just talk to this then and try to generalize from this thing.
Perfect.
And then you can correct me if I do my math wrong.
Yeah, missed the point, yeah.
I've been working on it for 3 years.
That's true.
That's true. We have, and I have, every summer doing the math, trying to figure this out. So I'll just do this real quick. Donna's got in the per LCAP district budget. You'll see down in the right-hand lower corner, district budget. Is that this year? You're
Yes, that is this year.
just looking at what this year would be?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So in the upper left-hand corner, you're going to see the $2,399,000 or less is needed to fund. So on an 8-period day, if I were to look at just us with 8 additional FTEs, it would be approximately $1.34 million for 8 additional FTEs.
1.5 and
I was
1.8
close.
for Vista.
And then for Vista with 12 would be, I'm sorry, Donna, was 1.8 to do the 8-period day. So you can see the combined amount, and this would be an ongoing cost, obviously, because once you put this in place, it's an ongoing cost each year to maintain the staffing there. And then the sliver is just showing what that would represent out of the district's budget to do at RBB and Vista High. At today's costs that we're using in terms of per teacher, this would be the cost to put in the program at 2 high schools each year. So as Scott said, yes, it's an investment. I'm also going to reiterate what Scott said is when you invest in our kids, and me being at the far south end of town, for me to compete fairly and equitably for our kids and keep them, giving them these opportunities to have these extra kids. I can tell you I've been at it 35 years. I've seen a ton of schedules. And the schedules for our EL kids and SPED kids hasn't changed much in 35 years. They get no opportunity. They come in at 9th grade, their schedule's taken up with interventions, etc. If they're lucky, they get an elective. If not, they don't get an elective. And I don't know about you, but waking up every morning to come to school with no electives, it doesn't mean that those other classes aren't important. We do want to get them caught up to grade level. We want to get them graduated. But it would sure help motivate some of my kids to come to school if they have an elective to look forward to come to and stay. And maybe I can keep them in RBB. And I can get them graduated on time. Nothing against my alternative schools. I love working with them, and I agree. Some kids need a different model. But I think I could keep some of my kids at RBB if I was able to give them the option of catching up at RBB and still take classes and keep them there. And we do after school parent visits. We have a sign up, come visit RBB, and they're making their rounds, Sage Creek, RBB, San Marcos, they're all visiting. They come and ask us, what do we have to offer? They love the programs we have at RBB. We have lots of them. They love the programs, what we have to offer, what my kids do an awesome job. But then when they start asking about what opportunities to take more classes, I have a hard time answering. Because they can say, well, this school has a trimester. This school has a 4x4. What can you guys do? Well, I have a period 7. It's hard to market with that. So anyway, I know I'm going sideways, but I'm going to put in my 2 cents before I'm gone. For my kids, I've been in this business for kids for 35 years. Anybody who's worked with me at RBB knows I am totally student-centered. Everything I do is about my kids. And that's why I fight for my kids. And I'm standing up here to fight for my kids with an 8-period day. They need opportunities. They need options to compete in the world they're going to walk into, because they're walking into a world I didn't walk into. So how are we going to get them to compete and give them those same opportunities? So thanks, Scott, for giving me 2 seconds to share my passion. I love RBB. It's a great place for kids. So anybody who doesn't know about RBB, come down and visit. It's a great place for kids, great programs, and this would make it even better. So, all right, any more questions on money? All right, Scott, who's next? All right.
So just to kind of follow up real quick, we understand that there are budget constraints. Okay, we know that, and we did want to be fiscally responsible. That's why we did look into how can we serve our kids, but also how can we support a budget that we know is in decline. And that's where we came up with the model of seniors would take 6, because even if they take 6, they're still offered more classes. Juniors would take 7, and then freshmen and sophomores would take 8, because freshmen and sophomores honestly are the ones that need the room to take the language and the art, or the support, or the intervention and the enrichment. The quicker we can get 9th and 10th graders tied into the school, the more likely they are to stay and find success. And that's our goal. We really do. RBB, VHS, we have great things to offer. We need our kids to be able to take them. And we do know that the budget, the preliminary budget is really, it's really robust for education, but you can't spend money that you don't have. I tell myself that every year at Christmas, and it doesn't matter, but if the budget even gives some of the items that Governor Newsom is offering, it could be a huge help to our district. And this is an investment, and our hope is that our students will stay if they see this, or even come into us. So I just wanted to kind of tack that on. So.
Perfect. Okay. Can we go to the next slide, please? So just to make sure that we're clear, timeline. you know, we're already late. Well, first of all, I'd argue that we're like years late. But in terms of actually launching this thing, if you have the intention of making this happen next year, instead of letting another year of those kids draining away, right? We're already late. Now, Vista and RBV, there's a varsity team. We can get all hands on deck and pull this off. I guarantee you that, okay? But it's gotta go now. There's an enormous amount of things to get done to get this master schedule created, with kids deciding on classes, meeting with counselors, letting parents know. I'm not gonna go down the long list, you have a sense of it. But the sooner this information gets to Chuck, right, and Cheryl, the sooner we can pull this off right. So the timeline there is trying to make sure that you're crystal clear on if this is something you want to do for a district, you should do it. If this is something you want to do for this district, you got to go now. I mean, you should decide like tonight. And if not, it's got to be the next time, because after that it's over, and then you just decided that those kids that are going to drain away weren't important enough this year. And then maybe next year we'll get to you. That's not the values we want to reflect here. That is not our value. All a budget is a reflection of values. All a budget is a reflection of values, okay? And what are we saying about our values? By the way, by the opportunities we are not providing to two of the high schools in our district. What are you saying, okay? So this is where this kind of thing needs to happen. So let's go to the next slide. I just want to make sure that you're crystal clear that we've got benefits for students, for teachers, and the district. We've already addressed that. I'm just going to skip through that slide. You're welcome to look at it along with the cat memes. How about the next one? There's a lot of FAQ, a lot of questions that some of you might have. These are the most common ones that we have, and I think we've actually sort of addressed a lot of these, right? This last one, though, is really important. Is the master schedule challenging to create? Sure. It's like a Saturn V rocket, right? It is incredibly complex, and there's not a lot of people who know how to do it right, okay? They need time. So, you know, Vista High School has an execute grant. They got the execute grant. They've got some consultants to help them with this. Rancho does not, right? So, you know, one of the ideas that we were thinking about to relieve some of the stress for Chuck and Sandy Barnes, our AP, who's doing the master schedule, is they need space to sit down and figure this out, right? I mean, it's hard enough as it is for them to pull it off. We're down one AP, right? That got pulled last year. So we're having a rough time over there. To be fair to them, right? They'll need some relief. One of the ideas is maybe we can get an administrator on a special assignment to come over, cover some of the meetings that they would have had to go on to do some of the discipline things, some of the nuts and bolts of administration. That can free up a lot of time for them and keep them sane to help them pull this off the right way. So that's one of the things I really wanted to point out there. Okay? How about the next slide? Just to make sure that you're clear, you know, we've gone through a really complicated, long process of discussions at both sites about the best model that would work for our site. This is what the bell schedule will look like at Rancho. In essence, you've got an 8-period day on a Monday, because we had a late start. That's going to launch the week for us, and then we'll alternate Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Okay, that's the model we chose. If you go over to the Vista High School, the next slide, they're using a different model. They're in the constant rotation. Okay, that Monday is just a couple minutes shorter on each of those class periods. So that's a model they feel like is best for their school, which is great. Okay. I'd love to talk to you a lot longer. If you have any more questions, I've got a lot of really smart people behind me who can answer these. I know we're all tired, but this is the best opportunity to get the experts. You got the experts in the room right here, right now. We know our sites and our school better than anybody in here. Okay?
Get us when we're tired.
What's that?
Did you get us when we're tired?
It's one of us. I don't know.
Scott, you've mentioned several times the students leaving and going to surrounding schools.
Yeah.
Which school district in the North County has an 8-period day?
I know that San Marcos is talking about it right now. I've got several friends over in San Marcos.
That wasn't my question.
Right.
If they're leaving, because you know the work I do. I'm pretty familiar with the North County schools.
Yeah. What do we got?
We got Sage Creek.
Sage Creek is on a trimester.
Yeah, that's trimesters. That's not.
No, but these are innovative models that provide a look at.
No, that's
There
the
is
question.
none with an 8-period day like ours, Rich, but the models around us that we're competing against are the trimester with Sage
Right,
Creek.
that's
Others have gone to the 4x4 in Poway.
Right.
You're correct that there is no 8-period day.
There's no 8-period day. That's
in
the reason
North
I,
County.
okay. So but you agree with that?
May I ask the purpose of that question? May I ask the purpose of that question?
Well,
I
you're
feel like
saying that
proving a
we're
point.
losing people, and I'm curious as to what we're losing
We're
them
not,
to.
okay, we're not losing them to 8-period schedules, we're losing them
Exactly,
to school,
okay.
hold on, let me finish my sentence. We're losing them to schools that have models that provide more opportunities, that fit for those
Absolutely.
schools.
Well, I'm not disagreeing with you there, I just
Okay.
want to be sure we weren't looking at.
Now, we're ahead of the
Go look
curve,
at that.
Debbie, we're ahead of the curve. We got a better idea.
We are, that was part of the reason can I say something? Sorry. Just to answer that, so a lot of the background that we did looking into this model, we spent a lot of time researching. And we looked at different schools, and 3 years ago when we were looking at this model, this was the one we thought would best fit the needs of all our students. And we looked at all of the different ones, and this is very forward thinking. And that was why we looked at it. And schools like Cathedral, and then some massive high schools up in Orange County, and Newport, and different schools all around different areas. A lot of schools on the East Coast actually offer this schedule, because the East Coast, as you know, also offers trade schools and different opportunities for their schools, or for their students. And so seeing their ability to be able to enroll in a variety of courses is what led us to this model.
Is there one close by I can go see?
Cathedral.
Cathedral Catholic.
Cathedral Catholic, yeah, and Poway, some of the Poway schools picked it up. So RV is currently on,
No Poway school that has it.
well, RV is on a 4x4.
Well, yeah, a lot
Yeah.
of 4x4s, but I don't know of anyone, I mean, and I'm not,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to be critical, I'm trying to go get some information about this, because
Yeah.
this is a model I haven't personally seen, or I'd like to see it.
So some of the data I went through, there's actually a site through Berkeley, and I can give you the link if you want, but what they did is they studied every single...
What a freeze, I can't go to Berkeley.
Yeah, well, thank goodness for the web, right? So they actually published a big document that studied multiple different models, and it gave the pros and cons, and then it actually had research published by teachers and principals at the school sites. And so for each model, there was a whole bunch of dialogue on each one. And so the 8-period, all the dialogue was there.
Research, because basically, this comes down to pace versus 25% more work for a kid. And that's really what it comes down to. Because if this was to be a 4x4 model instead of an 8-period day, and I'm not advocating, I'm just trying to compare the two, the cost would be the same.
Right.
The cost wouldn't be any different.
Right.
And so the additional FTEs, all of that would exist. So really all we're talking about now, and the difference between Mission Vista High School and this model, is pace. The pace is faster in a 4x4, but you're asking kids to do 25% more work during the course of their school year to get more opportunities. And that is what concerns me the most.
And we should be concerned with that, right? We want to be mindful of what we're dumping on kids at night. So one of the advantages of an 8-period day is, you know, my own daughter, both my kids go to Rancho now, and man, they cannot stand it when we go to like a 6-period day where they have the same class every other day, because it buries them in homework, right? So under an 8-period model, they're alternating their homework. So it is true that it is 25% more work. I mean, that may be a photography class, or that may be a robotics class, which we have to admit is not the same as one of those core academic classes. So I don't know if the 25% number quite works there, but they don't have to do that homework every single night. And that, I can tell you from my own children's perspective, that gives them some breathing room to be able to do other things.
But you know, it's got the same argument happens with a 4x4. You got 3 academic classes and one that doesn't have, you only have 3 classes that you have homework in. So I mean, I understand the argument there.
Right.
And I think that becomes this. For me, because, and you know, I think you know, in 2002, I was advocating for more opportunities.
Sure.
So I'm all for this, and since I've been on the board, I've been saying, hey, why do we allow one school to do this and the others not to? But I just want to be cautious that this model and what's happened. So what I'm very curious to hear from, and that's why I want to go see a site. I want to see if I can track one down and find it.
Got one for you real close, Rich.
Well, you said Cathedral Catholic. I can go there. Sometimes
you go a little further
I'm an
south
advocate.
from
They
there,
might
there's
not let me
about
on
one.
campus, but because I'm real interested in hearing from students about the model and how, you know, because it's 25% additional coursework. Because that one honestly scares me for the high-end kids. Because now you got high-end kids that are going to take, they're going to take 8 academic classes if they get a chance. And now we already worry about those kids that take 6 academic classes and the load that they have. So I mean, I just gotta get this in my sense about that.
Okay.
But I think you know from that standpoint, I've been advocating for this for,
Yeah.
a long
Yeah.
time.
So, the kinds of questions that you're exploring are things that we've done for the last couple of years here at Rancho, and a whole bunch of different things.
You haven't been able to go see one and talk to kids, I don't. Or did you go to?
No,
Cafe and
we
talk?
have not talked.
Okay, well, that to me, that's gotta be.
The problem with that logic is that means those kids have to know what it's like to not have it.
Right.
Right? They don't understand the absence of what they're not doing. They don't know what it's like to be in a 6-period model. So I would never discount the importance of listening to students about their experience on the site. But the logic problem there is that they don't know the other experience. So the data you're getting from them is solely from their 8-period data. So there's some things to talk about there. It's an interesting intellectual exercise, right? But I don't know if that's going to help you arrive at an answer any more easily, right?
Well, I would have to have some kids tell me it's no sweat, no big deal, I can do this, it's not a problem.
Okay.
Because I'm very concerned.
Okay, and again, I think we're all sympathetic to that. I know you're there, I'm going to finish my thought. We're all sympathetic to that, we don't want to bury kids.
I'll be glad to do it.
So I think, my sense is that Pete might have something to say about this.
Thank you. I just want to address the worries about the extra work for our students. And I'm a teacher at Vista High School, but I also have a daughter that was full IB. And she's already dealing with all those classes, but she has to take them after school. And so, and on top of that, the 4x4 model has already shown that it's not the best model for students who have to take an AP exam in May when they finish taking the course in December. We already know that. So again, we've spent a lot of time looking at it.
There's a response to that. You treat that AP course just like you treat ELD. You take the course for the whole year, you don't take it for a semester.
Then they're losing their,
No,
then it's
they're
no
not
longer,
losing-
now they're not
losing
taking
anything.
8 classes, they're taking 7 for the year. Or if they're taking multiple AP classes, they're taking 4.
It's a AB.
If they've got four AP classes in the fall, and they're gonna take them all year, all of a sudden, they've got the same 4 classes all year. That doesn't work. When do they get the rest of their classes?
Okay, anybody else have a question? I have a few, nobody else does. First of all, thank you so much. Like, this has been tremendous. I know your research, you've been keeping me in the loop. I actually come from 8-period high school, from where I'm from, back east, but that's all they have, are 8-period high school days.
Yes, it is.
And so I like it, and I like that you're doing this because we need them. The thing I hear a lot from the Vista High School students, because I have talked to students, is I would really like to come to school, Mrs. Smithfield, if I could get into a culinary class, but I can't. Or it would be so much better as a freshman if I could take science and this, but I can't. So we're hurting our kids. And I personally want to see this go, and I want it to start next year. And we will find the money as we restructure. And you put all your work into it, and I like the idea. I know how overwhelming. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, it's almost February. Those cards are going to come back. And we do. We have 2 people that I think I like your idea to. What's his name? Chuck. I'm sorry.
51, we're all there.
So
We're all
sorry.
there.
I'm kind of like, you're leaving soon, so. But anyway, we do. We have people to go in and sit on maybe like IEP meetings or different of those works, because he's leaving and we need to have it ready to go, smooth transition is my thought, you guys. I'm not sure what you guys think.
Can you speak to the facilities, if there's any issues on that?
What specifically you're asking about the facilities?
So
What
we're
adding
adding
facilities for?
classrooms, and if it relates to Prop LL and what we're gonna be doing.
Ah, fantastic. Chuck?
No, it's what's your name, right? It's what's your name? What's your name?
Yes, it has an impact on facilities, because the minute you add 8 more teachers onto my campus of 84, then I'm going to run out of classrooms. So you end up with a few teachers having to share classrooms based on the current facilities I have right now.
we addressed that in our exploration a couple years ago. Like, you know, teachers are, you know, we're protective of our classrooms, but, you know, on balance, on a trade-off, you know, we said this is a possibility. Some people may have to move rooms. I don't know. I moved rooms the first 10 years of Rancho with Rich, right? When Rich was there in the Wood Garden. I mean, that's sometimes I felt like dumping it on him. I mean, like that was just the nature of a gigantic school at that time. We were sharing a lot of classrooms, and sometimes that happens.
If like, okay, we're not gonna get.
On a trade-off, I'd rather have this for kids than me having my own room. You know, I've got my finger on the pulse of most teachers at Rancho. I guarantee you, like some people would be frustrated. It gets annoying sometimes, but on balance, this is too good for our school, our students, and our district. So I don't think that's a hard pitch. Did somebody want to say
The
something?
other facility issue, though, I am going to bring this up. Sharing classrooms, okay, we can work that out. The other one I am concerned about is when you add electives. If I add art, I only have 2 art classrooms and they're filled with my 2 art teachers. So where would I put an art room? That's the one I'm concerned about, is in this model you're adding electives, usually. Now, some of the electives we can do within the classrooms we have. The problem would be if you go to expanding your art program, you need an art room with the facilities to manage art supplies in there. CTE's out of that formula, but if you were thinking of adding CTE, any type of engineering, adding to the robotics problem, you would need a room with facilities to handle the equipment. Would be my only concern. Now, we've talked about other electives within the content areas, which wouldn't take those facilities. We could do in existing classrooms. So just to be fair to answer your question, that would be one concern. If you were to add an art teacher, I don't have another art room.
I would just like to make a comment. We know that there is going to be a renovation of all the existing relocatable buildings with a permanent structure. We know that if the board is going down this pathway, like Ms. Bisfield had mentioned, then we can incorporate, because they're getting ready to start master planning over at RVD. Alpha Studio Design Group is going to start meeting with Chuck and his staff about planning and what they need. At that opportunity, if this is a go, then you guys talk about what are the rooms, where are you going to go, you're planning out 10 years in advance. So when the time comes and the money's there from the bond to do the building, you already know what kind of rooms. You're going to master plan them, you're going to develop what you need, what are the courses you're thinking about, what are the requirements, the science, and all the other pieces of the puzzle that are needed for facilities. I know Dr. Seitz and Dr. Doyle are going to be working with you guys on educational specifications, what goes in a classroom, all those pieces and components. CTE submitted a grant for over $9 million to add engineering and other things into the program. We should hear in February or March if we are successful. Kelly McKinney did a great job on which I'm hopeful that you guys will be successful to come out of Prop 51. That would be amazing, because that would really support where you're going.
Thank you. And then a second question I have is for our VHS staff. How does this align or not align with XQ?
Probably just gonna ask that.
A bit shorter.
I know, there's no way to do this without just looking really weird. But
Just give her the microphone.
Just pull the mic out.
No. We're gonna want you.
Yeah. Hello, hi. So again, Melissa Cotter. I was one of the original people to help script the grant, and I went again last night to remember what we said. One of the sustainability things that we initially asked for was, $10 million is going to run out, and sustainability has been a big issue with XQ. And one of the suggestions that we wrote into the grant was becoming a magnet school. And that clearly isn't happening, and I'm sure Dr. Doyle probably has a lot more details as to that. It fits perfectly, I think, into our XQ program. What XQ is designed to do is to create these pathways, these learning opportunities for students to sort of have this sort of personal choice. What we've implemented with our houses, students grouped together at grade levels, having an 8-period day would actually allow for those pathways to be created for them. Currently, right now, we have an overlay for our wellness course. having an 8-period day would allow wellness teachers to actually spend more time with their wellness students. It would also allow for our challenge program to continue rather than having to cut down to a semester course, which is being kind of talked about. So for me, and I don't know if anybody else wants to jump in here, an 8-period day really allows us the flexibility within student schedules to make the XQ a reality. It also gives our students that flexibility. Another aspect of the XQ grant was having seniors have externships and internships that they're able to go off into the world of work. Having that flexibility in the schedule to allow them either start early, get out early, would allow for those opportunities to happen for our students.
Thank you. And then just a concern that I have on this. We're going to have 2 new principals at Vista High School and Rancho Buena Vista. The concern is if we were to move forward with this, having 2 new principals, you know, we don't know their background, where they're coming from, strengths, weaknesses. But if possible, I would encourage to looking at doing it in one school and going from there. If there is the resources. I'm not sure about the 2 schools at this point in time, but definitely love to hear from my colleagues.
I kind of feel the urgency to do it at both schools because you both are so sure that you're ready and the kids are ready. And the point of starting it now and maybe giving them support is so that the outgoing principal, Cheryl and Chuck, will make sure everything goes for a smooth transition, correct? Mr. Schindler?
Of course.
So, I just think, again, if we start with one and not the other, we're, again, who has it and who doesn't have it. And since both schools are saying they both need it desperately, I'm going to take it on your guys because you're the experts.
What a great opportunity for our district and our high schools and our students. This is perfect. We're building so much for the whole district, and we can increase our ADA by bringing students in from the outside, and it helps every student in the district, not just the high school, when we do that. So I make a motion to move forward with the RBB and VHS 8-period day and start it right away.
Is it just a discussion item? It's not an action item.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
So can we bring it, we have a few workshops this month, correct?
Yep.
Is there one before the 31st?
What could you do for you to help you get the yes? What do you need from us?
It's not that, we can't make a motion.
No, I'm not
right
talking
now.
about tonight. I think we're
So
all
if
crystal
we
clear.
have
What I
a
mean-
special meeting at the end of January, a workshop, maybe we could put it on there to vote for at that point.
The governance meeting, yeah, the 31st.
I think I'm interested also in finding a school, unlike Cathedral. Cathedral's private, am I correct? It's a private Catholic school. So I would be interested in finding a school with similar demographics as Vista, just to know what it looks like in their, implementing a 8-period day, if that exists.
Yeah, you gotta go north to Irvine, Orange County.
Right, I'm not saying in the county, I'm just saying anywhere.
Somewhere where it
Somewhere,
exists.
Southern California,
Yeah.
LA County to well, not San Diego.
Rich can kind of speak to this too. We ran into the same question when we were doing 4x4 at RBD early on. That we were trying to find a school that matched the demographic. She's trying to find a school that had the same demographics as RBD, and as Rich can attest, that's hard to find, right? Because all schools are not the same, right? Demographics do not match up exactly, right? So that would be a big, big challenge for sure. What do you want to say?
Just that our district committed to being the model of excellence, not finding another model to duplicate. So I just wanted to remind the board respectfully that we really, if we are about innovation, if we are about, building futures for kids and giving them the skills that don't exist yet, then we need to have a little faith, take a risk, and become the model invest in our students this way. I can't imagine waiting to see someone else do it so that we can jump on their bandwagon. Let's bring this here. Let's be the model that we promised people we would be.
I want to go back to the question from Cipriano for a second. So typically when we have something that's innovative or different, we launch a pilot to give it a shot and see how it rolls, kind of like we're doing the dual immersion at Grapevine. And it strikes me that it would be a reconstruct of two big campuses. Does it not make sense? I know people are excited and it's a cool idea and this is great, but does it not make sense to pilot it at one of the two?
No.
I think if we're speaking to equity, which is one of your great goals, how is that equitable? How do you look students up the face at Vista or RBB and say, not you?
I understand. It's just sometimes you find what you wish you'd done differently if you take
Then
it.
we'll change again. Then we'll change again. We adapt. That's what we do. We adapt. That's what we do.
Yeah, the design process. Exactly.
We have to be bold. I love that an English teacher makes this argument based on an article, versus the model of innovation. Only an English teacher would do that. Anything else?
No, so we will bring
I'm reading the room.
this
You're
back
reading the
for, we will bring this back for a vote at our
January 31st,
workshop.
which is January 31st. Is that what I'm
Yes.
hearing from you?
What time?
As you can imagine, I'm going to have more than one question tomorrow, so I want to make sure I got my dates right. So January 31st at a workshop.
January 31st, we have a workshop, so we can do this in the beginning. We'll just come in, you don't have to do a presentation, we will just talk about it again, probably quickly, and do a vote.
Okay.
And then if it goes through, we'll see what we have to do to get it going.
And I know that Vista would offer this same thing, but any of you who want to meet with us individually, right, we are absolutely, I think we've already demonstrated that, right, we are absolutely willing to spend time with you in private and answer any of the questions that might be harder, a little more complicated. We dropped a lot of information on you, you may need to marinate in it a little bit, and you may have a couple more questions, so please do not hesitate to contact me at RBB or any of the Vista teachers.
That is going to be a different time than usual. It's a workshop of the board, and right now it says it starts at 5. I will probably be recommending that we handle that item at 4:30. So just stay tuned, and we won't discuss and get into all that right now because we need to know board availability, etc. But I'm going to guess we do at 4:30 on this 31st.
Okay. We thank you for your time and your attention. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, somebody needs to take a 3-minute break, 4-minute break. Everybody.